very different size and
Yeah.
scale and time period of harvest. And I was trying to go like, maybe small people would be less tired. Just looking at it going, But, I don't know you, and I know you two, and you guys know who I am, but I'm just gonna go through the whole thing. My name's Rosie, I'm the events coordinator here at Raiders. I think that one of the most interesting things about being in Sonoma is thinking about what we think about taste, what we think about wines, what we think about food isn't necessarily normal. I grew up here, I went to college and went, what do you guys mean you don't know what terroir is? Like, that's just a joke we talk about. It's not true. Not everybody knows this. And the more you think about wine and the more you think about how we make wine, the more confusing it actually turns out to be. It's not as simple as just, there's some grapes, the grapes get squished into juice, you stick them in a keg for a while, and then you've got wine. And I think that's what Nick found out in writing Crush. The subtitle really hit me here, the year of being an apprentice winemaker. I think there's always a lot in every industry that's under the surface, and in talking and going through a year, we really found a way to discover what wine is really about and what small wine and what specifically West Coast wine is. So you guys can welcome Nick. He'll tell you a little more about it.
Thank you very much, Rosie. And thank you all for being here. It's great to speak in Sonoma and be part of this whole wine country and be part of this industry kind of from the inside out. And my goal in the book was, I'd written a lot about wine for various places, some for gourmet and other kinds of magazines. And I always focused on, and this was common, on wine is this fantastic event. So I always thought that people wore white pants and pastel colors. They were always having a fabulous time, it seemed. And then I discovered that actually this was a kind of illusion, or only one part of the whole world of wine. And so I'm just going to tell you a little bit tonight about how this book, Crush, how it got started, and kind of what I wanted to do with it. And if you wouldn't mind,
Okay.
this is a good time to do that.
I
Yeah.
panicked, I took it on mine, so I thought, oh my gosh, I don't have his phone.
Yeah, so Crush, my year as an apprentice winemaker, it's organized with a kind of a year-long sequence, because it starts with the Crush, ends with our bottling party. But it also really goes into a lot of the background of wine, and there's a lot about California, because I was lucky enough to interview all of these famous people, like Warren Winiarski, who passed away last year. His wine, his Cabernet, won what was called the Judgment of Paris. Are you all familiar with that? Okay. Let me just ask you, so your husband is an amateur winemaker, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Passionate.
Oh, he'll
Yeah.
love this book.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it for him after. You're
Crazy.
gonna sign it for him,
Yeah.
it'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably, it's a kind of mania that overtakes people. And, you know, I got into it making beer at first, and then I had these Italian soccer friends who I made wine with one time. And I thought, wow, I'm not making beer anymore. And then I started making wine, and it's a crazy business. You know, my wife, she tolerates it, and she appears in this book, and I'll read a little bit later about the infestation of fruit flies at our house. Other things. Thanks everyone for being here. Do you have a special interest in this topic?
Well,
or?
I've been
living in Sonoma for 2 years.
Okay,
I'm a transplant from the Chicago area,
okay,
but my daughter and son-in-law live in Napa. And my son-in-law is in sales of fine wines.
oh, okay,
And my daughter just began a job with a winery in Napa.
okay,
So I decided this would help me understand a little bit more about the wine. I mean, I love wine,
sure,
but I know it comes from grapes.
yeah, yeah,
And, but other than that, you know, so I thought,
good,
this way I'll learn something.
Yeah.
I might be able to tell them something that they don't know.
yeah, yeah,
And,
yeah,
so I thought this is a good opportunity.
perfect. How about you?
I work at a winery in Sonoma.
Oh, good.
Been there for a long time.
Okay, good,
Yeah.
good, yeah. Okay, well, so you have a little bit of that culture going, and so that's what really got me interested very quickly was this, just the mystery of it, and then the amazing people that are part of the industry. So one of the things I like to talk about, so I've published 5 books, and then I write a lot for magazines and newspapers. And every time, when I was a graduate student, we would share our stories and so forth in a workshop. And people would read the stories, and then they would critique them. And some of these stories were just a mess. They were really overcomplicated, too many characters, boring characters, no plot, all these issues. And if it was really difficult to figure out how to fix it, people would say, you should write a book. As if to say, I don't know how to fix this, but maybe if you keep writing, you'll write something worthwhile. So, and I wrote stories, some like that myself. And then as I progressed as a journalist, I began to figure out, okay, if I'm gonna write a book, it has to meet a certain criteria. And this book really started when I interviewed a guy named David Lake. And David Lake, he had an interesting career. He started selling wine in London, got a Master of Wine degree. You all know what that is, correct? It's a very difficult, complicated, comprehensive exam in, just smelling a wine, determining varietal, country, vineyard sometimes, and year. And anyway, but that prepared him in Washington to really have a really strong leadership role in the wine industry. And he became the winemaker at Columbia Winery. And so I got to know him. And instead of just interviewing him in his office, he said, why don't you come with me as I go around to the various vineyards and taste and to determine when to pick. So I did, and I thought, oh my God, this is a really interesting story. So that was kind of the beginning. And from that, I then, because I was able, I used to write a lot for Alaska Airlines magazine. I don't know if you have ever read that. It's not around anymore. But so I would come down here a lot. And so whenever possible, I would interview someone. I had a great interview, which I'll read a little bit from, with Robert Mondavi, who was, did you know him at all? Is it?
I knew about him.
Okay, yeah, he was an amazing
He was a
person.
character.
And then I got to know, and I just loved Warren Winiarski, the guy who won the Judgment of Paris. Really interesting man. So as a writer, so I'm not strictly a wine writer. I'm interested in people. I'm interested in great stories. And so these guys, that's why they really attracted me. And then the wine was something I found really interesting too, but it was the kinds of personalities that really stood out to me. Okay, and then the other part of this, and I think about this a lot, one of the things that's great about writing is it forces you to think. And so I grew up Catholic. I was an altar boy, and we would sometimes sneak some of the altar wine, which was, has anybody ever tasted that? It's very sweet, and I would always gag on it. And I thought, God, why was anyone ever interested in drinking this? But that idea of a sacred meal, I think, is still central, even if people are not religious. This idea of a really special moment, I think that's what has driven a lot of people's passion for wine and food and all the rest of it, and friendship. There's really a nice circle, honestly, and that's what really also attracted me to the industry, that sense of hospitality. So those were the kinds of things that that influenced some of my early kind of interest in it. And then I studied French in Nantes, France, junior year abroad, and that really got me kind of hooked on it. There it was oysters and muscadet. But you know, just tasting that and kind of experiencing that made me think, oh wow, this is really something interesting. So when I came back to the U.S., I started out a newspaper reporter for a weekly newspaper and then a daily, and then very quickly started writing some about wine. And so that's where Crush began to kind of take off. Okay. So I'm gonna just tell you a little bit about a couple of these people, and I'm just gonna focus on California for tonight, because there's a lot I could talk about, but I think California is the most relevant thing. And I'm going to talk about Robert Mondavi, because he was so central to the kind of creation of the California wine industry. And I'm going to just read a little passage. So part of my job, which was really fun, is I would get invited to these lunches and stuff. And so this is a particular lunch that I got invited to. And then part of this is a quotation from his autobiography, Harvests of Joy, which is a good book if you're interested. So it's about him, and it kind of it doesn't go into all of the tumult of his family. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Somebody said it was the inspiration for Falcon Crest. I don't know if that's true or not. But it does go into his appreciation of wine. So he says, wine holds up to our eyes light and color that no man could create, he says in Harvest of Joy. In its essence, I believe that wine holds out to us all the order and wisdom of nature and of God himself, if only we have the patience and faith to pursue all the mysteries and truths waiting inside. So anyway, I think about that a lot myself when I'm making wine and, you know, just having a little glass. Before he died in 2008, Robert Mondavi cemented his reputation as an undisputed leader of the California wine industry, an innovative winemaker, and a shrewd, skillful, and energetic marketer. He was one of the most charming and forceful personalities I've ever encountered in the wine trade. He had a very good story to tell, and by God, he was going to tell it. After touring his winery, I sat down to lunch at the Cliff May Room with other journalists visiting that day. Oh, one thing, just as an aside, he was one of the first winemakers to really make tasting a big part of of wineries, and it was a real benefit to these wineries because they got people kind of hooked on the product, and then they would buy more. But he was one of the first people. And then the wine. Has everybody been to the winery? It's really worth going. It has beautiful sculpture. They do a great job with the tastings and tours and everything. After touring the winery, I sat down to lunch at the Cliff May Room with other journalists visiting that day. Mondavi recounted the history of his winery with candor and humor, a version of what he'd written in Harvest of Joy. Wine has been with us almost since the dawn of civilization, and for centuries, poets, painters, musicians, and philosophers have sung its praises. Even the Bible applauds its virtues, and wine to me is even more. When I pour a glass of truly fine wine, when I hold it up to the light and admire its color, when I raise it to my nose and savor its bouquet and essence, I know that wine is, above all else, a blessing, a gift of nature, a joy as pure and elemental as the soil and vines and sunshine from which it springs. So I really like that quote because I followed wine for many, many years. Wine is very cyclical, right? At the moment, we're in a sort of a downturn of it, but that's happened before. And quotes like this, the kind of sentiment that he expresses, I think really puts it in a certain light that is useful. So anyway, I think that it's good to keep things like that in mind. Okay. After he toasted the group, the winery hosted a fantastic lunch with different kinds of meats, cheeses, salads, and desserts, all accompanied by Mondavi wines, of course. These press events served an important role in his well-oiled marketing machine. While the event was certainly professional, it possessed a personality and warmth that I found appealing. Journalists from national wine magazines sat at the front of the room, while journalists like me from more general interest magazines sat near the back. Mondavi made the rounds with everyone. "How's the lunch?" he asked. "Fabulous," I said. "Great," he said. He touched my shoulder, ready to move to the next guest. "Could you do me a favor?" I asked. I brought out a bottle of my 1998 Les Copains Cabernet. This is the wine that I make with my friends. "I also make wine," I said, perhaps impertinently. "Would you like to try a sip?" "Sure," he said, sitting down. The waitress fetched
I'm relaxed. Don't I seem relaxed to you? Huh?
That's your phone.
Oh, God. See, this is what's wrong with AI. Or maybe it's operator error. Okay, getting back to the book. Sure, he said, sitting down. The waitress fetched a corkscrew and opened the bottle. She poured a sample in each of our glasses. He swirled it around and then shoved his nose into the glass. He had a very large nose. I know I was putting him on the spot. Would he be honest with me? Would he like the wine or spit it out? If he didn't like it, would he be too polite to say anything about it? He took a sip, swished it around in his mouth. "It's good," he said. "Anything I can do to improve?" I asked. I thought of Noel Coward's quip about criticism. "I love criticism, as long as it's unqualified praise." "Sometimes I'm not the best critic," he said, putting the glass down. "Thank you for tasting it," I said. "I really appreciate it." He nodded and went on to visit other journalists. I went back to finishing my lunch, but I felt a flush of pleasure in my cheeks. He liked it. So this was something that I would do periodically, and sometimes putting people on the spot, but other times just asking them questions like, "I'm having this, what kind of yeast do you use with a particular kind of grape?" And people were always so generous and interested, and so that actually helped not only my writing, but it got me further interested in seeing what I could do with all this stuff. So that was a really interesting, fun interview with him. And then, let's see, I'm going to read one more section. So, Warren Winiarski, he's such an interesting man, and you're all familiar with the Judgment of Paris? And that I think was really, that was the kind of the turning point in not only California wine, but North American wine. And there was Stephen Spurrier, a British wine merchant, organized this tasting, 12 American wines, 12 French wines. and the judges were all important French critics, and it was a blind tasting, and the French were shocked and appalled when their wine didn't come in first in really in almost none of the categories. And it may not have been a big thing, except there was a journalist there named George Tabor, who wrote about this for Time magazine. And suddenly it just exploded.
What year was that?
1976
Oh,
for the bicentennial.
Oh,
Yeah. So that was the kind of the purpose of it. And Warren, he was a professor of political science at the University of Chicago, and in his spare time he was making wine, and he just couldn't. He was just so excited about doing it that he left his job, and he didn't have any prospect necessarily of a job, but he had enough money to buy a station wagon. He and his wife Barbara, and then their two kids, they drove out to Napa, and he got a job at one of the wineries and just plunged into the industry, and then eventually his wine won this contest, and suddenly his phone was just ringing off the hook. And but he continued to kind of innovate and make this just really terrific wine, and so it was fascinating to interview him. So he took me on a little drive around his Arcadia vineyard. So he sold Stag's Leap. His kids were not interested, for $136 million. Not kind of a pretty tidy sum. And then he bought Arcadia Vineyard. And so he did that sort of as a part-time hobby that wasn't as demanding as his other work. So this is when I followed him to the vineyard. As always, he keeps a close eye on the vines. This attention to detail is necessary to make the wines a balance that he loves. It's the care in the vineyard, not the latest technological gizmos, that makes a difference for him. He says, in Napa, at a certain point, winemaking technology had been amplified. Many people were so impressed by the new tools that they devoted themselves to exploiting all of this power to improve wine. New centrifuges, pumps, crushers, specialized yeast, etc. Then they realized they couldn't get the full expression of the grapes through this technology alone. They couldn't extract the beauty of the grapes without going back to the vineyard. This happened gradually in the mid-70s and 80s. For example, the conventional 8x12 spacing made things easier for tractors to move down the rows, but did not improve the quality of the fruit. And then the question became how to grow better grapes. How do we improve the grape, he asks. He keeps driving, answering the question with his actions, focusing his care and attention on the vineyard. Okay, on the way back to the barn, we passed the new block 9, which is devoid of vines and ready for planting. Warren is planting this hillside block with a Mount Eden Cabernet clone from Santa Clara County. I love that clone, he says. Martin Ray introduced me to it back in 1963. After spending a week at the Martin Ray winery at the start of his career, Winiarski came away determined to become a winemaker. This was when he moved out to California with the station wagon and his wife and his kids. Thus planting the Mount Eden Cabernet clone here allows his career to come full circle. Rather than retiring, he's continuing to work into his 90s. He died last year at 95. As we say our goodbyes, I head back to Napa, relishing how much I've learned. I'm amazed how much time and attention goes into keeping a vineyard healthy and producing beautiful fruit. I'm excited to be learning how to taste grapes so as to pick them at their peak. I doubt anyone would pay me to do it, but at least I'm forming a clearer idea of how to do it. Looking at his Chardonnay block after the harvest, he says, the vines in this block look as though they have said what they had to say for this cycle of the sun. They're now on their knees, wanting to rest. I'm here thinking about how to help them prepare for their next awakening. And that was a moment I remember seeing him after I left him, just wandering around the vineyard with this sense that he had such a care for those plants and sort of really almost understood their point of view. Anyway, so that was really an important kind of moment for me. Oh, and just one other thing. So I do have, I'm going to just hand this around. In addition to writing, I do teach writing classes via Zoom, and I teach a class every year in Europe, travel, food, and wine writing class. I'm going to be doing it in the Côte d'Aron. So if you're interested, you can sign up for my email. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to read is about home winemaking, because once you get involved with this stuff, it's a lot. Have you discovered this at all?
Discovered what?
It's different when you make wine yourself from how you maybe thought it would be.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah, so so one of the things a mistake that I made was I fermented some grapes, but I fermented them in the garage below our house, not like in a detached building. So this is what happened. It's fall and we're infested. Clouds of fruit flies fill the air. They buzz around my wife Lisa and me at dinner. They chew the chilies hanging in our kitchen, raining a fine red powder on the floor. They roost on the cupboards. They fornicate on the refrigerator. They threaten to overpopulate our house and our Seattle neighborhood as well. You have them too, says Paula, a neighbor, swatting them away on her back porch. They're bad this year. Yes, I say, nodding, as if it's an act of God, but it's no accident that our house and neighborhood are infested. Some of Washington State's finest Cabernet grapes sit in our garage, fermenting into what I hope will be a stellar new vintage. Like most enophiles, I'd long fantasized about making my own wine. The romance, the poetry, the passion of it. Now that I've been doing it for a while, other words come to mind. The fruit flies. My relationship with the insects is complicated. Their appearance coincides with the harvest, one of my favorite times of the year. Sometime around mid-October, I never know exactly when, I'll get a call. The grapes are in. I have to drop what I'm doing, load plastic garbage cans into my friend Tom's truck, and drive to the sunny eastern side of the state where the best vineyards, Sagemore, Porteous, Ciel de Cheval, are located. Their names are beautiful to me. Arriving back in Seattle, I unload the buckets, wash the stemmer crusher, and prepare for the crush. As the members of our Le Copain wine co-op arrive in the driveway of my house to begin crushing grapes, the first reconnaissance patrols of fruit flies appear. They buzz around me excitedly, making their distinctive right-angle flight patterns, intoxicated by the smell of the juice. At first, the flies add a festive atmosphere to the crush. We dump container after container of grapes into the stemmer crusher. We sample the sweet, sticky grape juice and previous vintages for comparison. Crush is a time to catch up with everyone and enjoy some wine together. By the end of the night, we're comparing our vin du garage to that of Chateau Lafite Rothschild. Our hubris knows no bounds. After crushing the grapes into the large plastic tote, I add sulfite to the must to stun the wild yeast on the grapes. Some winemakers omit this step, allowing the wild yeast to ferment, but as amateurs, we have a less controlled environment. We use cultured yeast for a more predictable fermentation. Next, I dump packets of cultured yeast into a pitcher of grape juice and leave it overnight. The fruit flies hum crazily. The next morning, yeast foams over the top of the pitcher. Fermentation. After dumping the pitcher into the grapes, the next morning I see a scum of brownish bubbles on the top. The thermometer reads 80 degrees, which is promising. The yeast is eating the sugar in the grapes, turning it to alcohol and carbon dioxide. Churning the grapes with the shovel, I inhale the heady perfume of CO2, yeast, and grape juice. Fruit flies circle around me, intoxicated by the smells. Though I'm pleased with the progress of the fermentation, I know that problems can occur. If the fermentation doesn't take off, the wine can be ruined. Again, this is one of the reasons we use cultured yeast. Still, fermentations with cultured yeast can get stuck, meaning the fermentation doesn't finish, making the wine prone to spoilage. I'd like to see more vigor in the fermentation. The next day, the thermometer reads 83 degrees. The grape skins rise above the juice, creating a cap. Yes, the fermentation is picking up. I use the shovel to punch down the caps so that the skins have plenty of contact with the juice, ensuring the wine will have plenty of color and tannins. Over the next few days, the thermometer's reading rises to the low 90s. The cap continues to rise. I hear a low seething sound as the yeast gobbles the sugar. You can actually hear this. It's really something. The fruit flies can't contain their excitement. Clouds of them fill the garage, buzzing around me as I break the cap. Things become strained. It would be fine if there were a few of them, but an ever larger cloud boils up to greet me. The parents have become grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents. It's hard to breathe without inhaling several generations. The next day, the must reaches 95 degrees. I'm hoping it doesn't go any higher. If the fermentation is too hot, it can yield cooked flavors in the wine, making it taste burned or like caramel. Breaking the cap, I stir the liquid, hoping for the best. I turn off the heater to lower the temperature. The following morning, the temperature falls to the low 90s. The cap begins to sink. As fermentation slows, the temperature drops. The fruit flies buzz ecstatically. They can't get enough of the grapes. A week later, fermentation subsides and we press the wine and transfer it into barrels. We submit the wine to rigorous quality control analysis, meaning we taste it as we press it and speculate on its prospects, which improve the more we imbibe. The fruit flies dance around us as the dark purple liquid sloshes into the barrels. The spilled wine whips them into a frenzy. They land in it and paddle around, getting gloriously drunk on the last of the vintage. The next morning, reality sets in. The grapes are gone. Chili powder appears on the floor. Clouds of flies swarm us at dinner, begrudging us every bite. There are a lot of fruit flies, Lisa says as they buzz around us. A biology major, Lisa likes fruit flies in moderation, but there's nothing moderate about the clouds circling around us. In the genetics lab, we use traps to get rid of them. Good idea, I say, setting out traps made of cups filled with juice and topped with plastic wrap with a hole punched in it. They quickly fill. These traps have done the trick in the genetics lab, but they won't pass muster with the clouds generated by the grapes. The buzzing reaches a crescendo. I can't even walk through the kitchen without parting a curtain of flies. Trying to open the fridge, I inhale several. That's it. I've had enough. It's time for the shop vac, the nadir of my relationship with the fruit flies. The cupboards and walls bristle with flies. As I pass the hose over them, they struggle to hang on, but are quickly sucked into the maw of the machine. I'm relentless, taking no prisoners as I make pass after pass over the flies. After several days of this operation, the buzzing stops. Peace reigns in the house. Thank God they're gone, Lisa says. I found some in the toothpaste. I laugh nervously, hoping they really are gone. A few days later, sipping our 1998 Cabernet Merlot blend, which won first place at the local county fair, I can afford to get philosophical about the flies. Sure, they're pests, but they're a small price to pay for having a home winery. I relax my vigilance, take my hand from over my glass, and look in to see several flies drowned in the liquid, reminding me that, like it or not, making wine and fruit flies are intertwined. Next time, we'll do the fermentation at Tom's house. Thank you. Questions?
No, that's great. I can relate to a lot of that. I just do what my husband tells me as far as the winemaking stuff goes, but yeah,
Does that sound,
we've never had fruit flies at our house, but we do a few, like we do a very small amount at our house, because we've got some grapevines at our house, so we do it
oh,
at our
okay,
house, but then with this, he also belongs to like a co-op, so the house where they go, I've been over there, and yes, there are fruit flies.
where, do they do the fermentation, outside the house or inside?
It's like underneath, it's a base, so you go, when you go to the house, you go behind and it's a basement. So this group has, the city of Sonoma, you guys might know this, has, it was just a plot of land. And some
Okay.
people like 50 years ago went and said, can we plant a vineyard here, we'll take care of it.
Oh, cool,
So
yeah,
there's this, on city land, there's a vineyard, and this group of winemakers tend the vineyards, they do everything. They
Oh,
grow the
fun.
grapes, and then they make wine with that. So this is where they go to this guy's house to make the wine.
did you get one? So what do they all just kind of share it amongst themselves?
The
or-
wine?
Yeah,
Yeah, and my husband's told me the original agreement when the city said to do this was they could
No,
have the
no.
land, have
Okay.
the land for this, they have they don't get any money from the city for any, they share the expenses of it, but
Okay.
they have to give people on the city council like a case of wine each or something, so
oh,
they-
okay,
but then otherwise they share the wine between
okay,
the members of that group.
that
yeah.
sounds really fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
everyone loves it.
yeah, yeah, it's a very convivial experience, yeah. There's actually, there's a vineyard, in Paris,
Mhm.
small, and they do a similar thing, but they actually, all the wine, they donate to charity.
Oh my gosh, so it's in Paris?
Yeah, it's right in the middle of Paris.
Oh,
I think it's
that's
on Montmartre. Yeah,
Oh, really? Okay, we'll
Yeah.
be there in spring, I wanna go see this.
yeah.
That's cool.
And so you could buy, I don't know how good it is,
Uh-huh.
but I just like the idea of it,
Yeah, I love
you
that.
know. Yeah, yeah. Great,
So you've done your own home winery, but
yeah.
have you been affiliated with a winery, working as a?
Volunteering,
Oh,
you know,
oh.
yeah, that's really what I've done. And so what I did through the volunteering, I wanted to write about it, which I've done here, and then just learn about how to make better wine and all the rest of it. So, yeah, and sometimes it was a lot, sometimes it was just like a day or so. But every place I went to, I learned a lot about various parts of it. There's a question in the book, do I want to do this as a career? But you'll have to read the book to see what the answer to that is. So, but yeah, I've gotten very far into it, and I still love it. It's just a fascinating world with really interesting people in it. So, so I'll continue to write about it, but I write about other things. I've written 2 books
You
about.
live in Sonoma?
I live in Seattle.
Oh, you're from Washington.
Yeah, yeah.
What were your other books about?
Two of the books were about mountaineering, the mountain climbing disaster. That was my last book. And then I wrote a book kind of interviewing, profiling famous climbers like Sheridan McNorrie and people like that. And I've written 2 books about Northwest literature and history and so forth. Yeah. So,
What you said though about the winemakers being so willing to share information with you, I
Yes.
found that interesting. Like I said, I'm not the winemaker in the family, I really know nothing about it, but watching my husband explore this and do this, like when he was deciding whether or not to pick our grapes, and anybody
yeah,
he'd see from any winery, he would ask,
yeah,
well, what do you think? Our bricks are at this, and the acids at this. And they were all so willing. And
Yeah.
people even saying, well, if you want me to come over to your house and look at this, I mean,
yeah,
amazingly giving and
yeah,
nice about that. Talking about yeast and all this stuff.
Yeah,
It's surprising.
it's still, and that's nice here because, it's become more competitive, there's more money involved and everything, but I've always found that that's a big part of it, and it really allows people to get better and innovate, It's really wise, it's a long, but honestly, people aren't even thinking in those terms, they just enjoy kind of sharing their knowledge and, participating in this process. And I think, it's been around for so long, I think people, and I think I've felt that too, you just feel like you're part of something that resonates with you, so, and you just kind of, you want to share it with other people. Great, well, thank you, if you'd like to, I'd love to sign a book
Yeah,
for you.
get one.
What winery do you work at?
Oh, okay.
I belong to the winemakers.
Oh, you do? So you
But
gotta